Hello, everyone. It's Mrs. Fontre here. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite times in all of art history, and that is the Renaissance. Can you say Renaissance? Renaissance. It's really kind of a fun word to say. So let's jump right in and talk about how it fits into the rest of art history. All right. Renaissance was around 1400 or 1400 to 1600 CE, or people call it AD sometimes too. So that's like our common era. This is kind of close to where we are today. And Renaissance actually means rebirth or renewal, or kind of like bringing something back to life. And before the Renaissance, Europe fell into this time known as the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages. And the Renaissance was about rediscovering the old ways that the Greeks and Romans used to do things, all right? So they started to value education more, and science and art, which is why we're talking about it. Literature and writing and music and people, they started to kind of bring back some old values from the ancient times. And some very famous artists during these times, and we'll talk a little bit more about them, are Donatello, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael. Okay, maybe those names sound a little familiar, and we'll talk about why in just a minute. But if you think, whoa, wait a second, like what all happened in between there? Because we talked about cave art earlier this year. We talked about ancient Mesopotamian art, and usually we talk about ancient Egyptian art as well. We kind of do those every other year, but what happened in between? So let me show you with art and how things kind of changed, all right? So if you look back at sculptures from ancient Egyptian times, they were pretty like new, and like there was a new thing to do. So the people didn't look as realistic, and they had their arms kind of close to the body so they wouldn't get broken off. But as time went on with the Greeks and the Romans, they learned how to get pretty good at making these sculptures look like actual people. You can see from the timeline of how the statues changed, they look more and more realistic, right? All the way up to the Romans with that really realistic looking robe that she has on with all those frillies and those blowing in the wind. Looks really realistic, right? But then after the Romans came these Middle Ages or the Dark Ages. And you can see on the left, there is a sculpture from the Roman times that's very detailed, very realistic. You can see like the fabric, it looks like a real person almost, right? But in the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, art wasn't really as important anymore. They wanted art for one main reason, and that was to kind of tell the story of Christianity or religion, because that's what was really important about at that time. So it didn't really matter if the art was as realistic as it used to be, as long as it told the story they wanted, okay? So that's why art changed, because they valued or thought things were more important, which happens sometimes in history, right? And so this is where the Renaissance comes back into play, where we bring these old ideas back, these old styles, these old things that are important, and here we are, all right? So, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, there are four very famous artists from this time, Donatello, Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, and Michelangelo, and you might know them from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, I'm not sure who created this show or thought it'd be good to name them after Renaissance artists, but hey, it's an easy way to remember all of them, right? So, I like to pretend that they're the heroes, though. Give them the masks and the superpowers. So, let's get into some art that's new from the Renaissance and compare it to some art that we may have seen from other classes. So, for example, this is from this piece on the right is cave art with two bisons, which is a sculpture with clay around some rocks in a cave. And the one on the left from the Renaissance is called the Pieta by Michelangelo. Now, normally in class, we have a big discussion to see what is similar or what's different. So maybe take a minute to think, how are these similar? How are these different? One thing that's similar is they're both three-dimensional. They're both something made out of clay or marble. So it's something you could walk around and see all the way around. But one thing that's very different is even though they're both realistic, you can both tell what they are. They're people and animals. Well, one of them is animals and one of them is a person and people, and they're very realistic, right? It almost looks like you could put your hands right into that lady's robes. It looks like real, right? I know a lot of people, when they see this piece at first, they think, oh my gosh, like there's a dude that's just laying there. Well, the story behind this piece is that it's Mary and Jesus after her son died. So it's supposed to be really kind of a sad piece. So he wouldn't be wearing a full piece suit, right? He died. So it's kind of sad. But anyway, the whole point of the Renaissance is being realistic and kind of having some religious stories behind it too, to kind of bring the Middle Ages together with the Renaissance. So that's how that kind of happened. All right. So again, very, very realistic, right? Here's another one to kind of look at, the Renaissance versus ancient Egyptian. The painting from the Renaissance is done by Raphael. And the one on the right, we don't know the artist because it's so old, but maybe you can see that they are both people, right? They're both people that are painted, but the one from the Renaissance by Raphael is very realistic, right? You can see those pudgy little baby arms. It looks like you could just give a baby a little pinch on the cheek. It's so realistic, right? There's light and dark and medium values all through it. Like the Egyptian one is all just solid black hair or solid skin or solid colors. It's very solid. But even just looking at like this lady's red shirt, look how many different types of red are mixed in, right? There's light red, medium red, dark red, there's shadows. There's so many colors in that, right? So it looks a little bit more realistic. Okay? All right, on to one more to show you. We'll be talking about some more Impressionist artists in the future here, but one of them we like talking about is Claude Monet, and you can see his painting on the right with lots of bright colors and kind of a sunset, a little fuzzy looking. And the one on the left is a painting by Leonardo da Vinci, right? You can see, again, I think the big theme here is it's very realistic, right? You can see the people, there's an angel, there's a garden, there's some landscape in the way back. It looks pretty realistic. Monet has really bright colors. And do they have as bright of colors from the Renaissance? Not as bright as Monet. And his artwork was made a couple hundred years later, so they had better paints then. So the colors are much brighter for Impressionist and Monet's kind of art. All right. So from here, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to get out of here for just a second, but I'm going to be getting into what your grades project is, because it might be based on one of the artists we learned about and maybe some other common thing from Renaissance. So stay tuned and find out. So first graders, your project is pretty interesting because we're going to be actually designing Renaissance buildings. All right. Now, a really old idea from the Renaissance, and you might actually see this around today sometimes, are big doming buildings, all right? They're big half circles for the tops, and then usually they're held up by pillars, all right? So here's a picture of one that we're gonna kind of be working on with class. And for your project, I'm hoping you could find a piece of paper and something to draw with, but if you have this at home, you might have this. If you have a brown paper bag from maybe you were grocery shopping or maybe you have stuff for bag lunches, that would actually be really awesome for this project to kind of make it look more like old Renaissance paper, all right? And I'm going to use a white and a black crayon because we're not using white paper, okay? I have like this brown paper. So a white crayon should show up all right on this. It might be kind of fun to play with white crayons because we don't get to do that enough, right? So let me talk you through how to draw a little Renaissance building. All right, let me switch this camera here for us. And let's get started. So what you're going to be doing besides getting your crayons, we're going to be keeping our paper the nice and tall way today, okay? Because usually buildings are pretty tall, so our paper is going to be tall too, all right? And I'm going to just start with white because we don't use it very often, and we can always go in and add some black later to make it look like there's shadows going on, all right? So at the very top of our paper, we're going to do kind of a hill shape that's flat on the bottom, okay? We want to leave a little room on the top in case you want to add some more decorations later, but I'm going to start by drawing my line across the middle. I broke my crayon there. And I'm going to then make a hill. Okay, I'm going to go up and down. It kind of looks like a letter D. I twisted my whole paper around, and I got my camera kind of look funny anyway. So a letter D right here. And if you want to on the top, you could add a line, or maybe you want to add another shape or a triangle, and we could add something on the top. I think I'm going to stick with like a rectangle shape on the top just to make it a little bit more fancy. Bump it on as a little fun thing on the top. And hey, maybe I could add a triangle on top of that. Boom. Even more fancy. All right. Maybe I could have a flagpole. I don't know. I could keep going. And at the bottom, we're going to give it some legs to stand on. So we're going to do some taller. I'm going to do kind of this rectangle or a square shape just to start, to give it like a base or where I'm going to put all my pillars. And then I'm going to draw some lines just go up and down. Okay. So I'm going to draw one line here, one line here, and it kind of, after a while, it's going to look like it's held up by these lines. Okay. And to really make it look like it's held up, I'm going to color in a few of them. Okay. So my end ones, I'm definitely going to color in because I want to make sure it looks like it's a nice, strong building so the roof won't fall down. Okay. And I'll color the other one in. Now, depending on how many lines you have, maybe you'll be able to color in like one or two more. So it looks like I'll have like a pattern here. I got white, brown, white, brown, and white. So I actually kind of made a pattern when I was doing this. All right. And you can see I didn't actually draw my little building all the way to the ground. I left some space because I want to kind of add some stairs too. I might as well make it really fancy, right? So I'm going to draw some rectangles at the bottom, and they're going to be kind of small, skinny ones. So down here, I'm going to go out a little bit, and then make a little line down, and I'm going to connect them. So it looks like almost something you'd put a wedding cake on top of, right? And I'm going to do another one, maybe make it a little bigger, draw another line. So now we got some stairs. All right, a little crooked, but that's okay. It's an old building anyway, right? So from here, let's just color in more of it white. Okay, I like doing the top all white because normally they would have made these out of like concrete or cement, or if there was like a really fancy little one, it could even have some marble, right? All these like lighter stones for our building. So I'm gonna lightly scribble this in. Helps if you don't break your crayon when you start, but that's okay. Now you have two crayons, right? And you know, I talked to you already about getting your black out, and we're gonna add some black in here to make it look like it's a little bit more three-dimensional or 3D. So what I'm gonna very lightly, because let me just show you if I flip over my paper. If you press down hard, you can get really dark black, but if you go kind of lightly, kind of get more of a grayish kind of color. So let's kind of try to use light and dark black while we're doing this, all right? So on my far side, I'm going to leave one side almost entirely white because I'm going to pretend that there is a sun shining on my building. So it's already lit up because it's all nice and bright, right? But in the middle, maybe I go a little bit of that very light black so it looks like there's a shadow, okay? And maybe in the middle of my of my dome right here, I'm going to put a little bit of darker too, okay? It's kind of hard to see with the camera, but you can see it's a little darker. Maybe I can add a little line here for where the roof of my dome is, right? And then the next one over, I'm going to make that even darker. I might not want to go like as dark as I did here because that's really dark. So maybe I'll just go a little darker, okay? You can see it looks almost more of a shadow. There we go. Definitely darker than the other one. And a dome is not flat. Okay, it actually is kind of like you could put a big orange in our dome because it's supposed to be three-dimensional. So I'm going to kind of add curving lines. Do you see that? I just kind of did curving lines a little bit to make it look a little bit more 3D. And even, you know, I did a rectangle on top. Might as well make this side a little bit darker too, right? And I did a triangle on top, so I might as well make that side a little darker too. So it all looks like it's all light and dark. All right. You'll be doing the same thing with the stairs too, because I got a little excited to add my black value. So I gotta finish doing my stairs here. But you can do the same thing down here. You can do your white step. Okay. And as you get closer to the darker side, you add a little bit of dark, and maybe you add a lot more dark towards the left. Okay. So we're playing with using light and dark for our drawings today. All right, so when you are all completely finished with this lovely little Renaissance building, I would love for you to give me a photo of whatever you came up with. So if you could take a photo with your iPad and put it in the Seesaw app under this assignment, that would be great. But otherwise, I can't wait to see what you come up with for your buildings. You're free to add other things too if you want to add some extra shapes or lines or whatever you want to decorate. All right. So any questions or concerns, please let me know, and I will see you next time. Happy creating.